Hey guys, it's Chris. So we've got another coaching case study for you today. I'm going to peel back the layers and give you a look into what high-level coaching with me looks like and the sort of detail that I go to get the type of results that you see. And again, I know, guys, as I've said before, there aren't going to be really any trainers that are prepared to do this. I'm going to share with you exactly how I took Laura in this case study through this epic body transformation to achieve this result in 12 weeks. So meet Laura. So Laura was a personal trainer. She'd been a personal trainer for the past 4 years. She was a keen CrossFitter. She'd competed in high rocks events. She'd got a good base level of fitness and strength. So exercise and training, that wasn't necessarily an issue for her. Obviously, she loved to train. She was always in a routine with exercise, as you'd expect for a PT. But the thing is, for PTs need coaches too. They are just normal people, just like you guys. And often, to get to that next level of result, there's going to need to be a lot more specificity, and there's going to need to be a lot more progression within their programs compared to doing just basic programs. So this is where I found Laura. She got a good base level of fitness and strength, but she wasn't entirely happy with her body shape. So she had struggled to lose belly fat, even though she did some form of exercise 6 or 7 times per week. She really loved to train, really loved to do some form of exercise, whether it was weight training, running, whatever it might be, classes. And she definitely wasn't sure of where to start with nutrition. Again, you kind of think that most PTs are going to know nutrition, but they don't get taught this on their PT qualifications. It's something that's kind of just skimmed over. And especially when we're talking about understanding calories and macros and really how to piece together an actual effective nutritional framework. This is just something where most PTs are really, really unsure of. And especially when it comes to actually applying a program to themselves. So she was unsure where her calories needed to be or where her macros were. She wasn't actually tracking calories or macros where I found her. And also she had a little bit of a fear of eating more food in case she gained more weight and belly fat. So the same sort of thing. When we get locked into this cycle of being unsure of calories and unsure of eating more food especially, there is that fear that you're actually going to get bigger and you're actually not going to get results. And that's definitely where I found Laura. But this is also Laura. So throughout Laura's program, she was actually low weight on that starting photo. So body weight wasn't necessarily an issue. Body fat was the thing that we wanted to change, body fat to muscle tissue ratio, which was going to be the focus of this program as I'm going to walk you through. So weight was 50 kilos. Throughout the actual program, we took her weight down to 45 and just over 45 kilos. She completed her first ever photo shoot. She was feeling obviously way more toned, as you can see, more in shape from her own structured programming that I created for her. But obviously, more importantly, she was way happier, more confident. And actually, again, finally felt as though she could just focus on one thing rather than trying to think about how she needed to diet or how she needed to train. And this is the advantage of having a coach, and coaches also need coaches. I've invested in lots of coaches in my career, and ultimately when you have a coach, you have that accountability. But the most important thing for coaches is removing that guesswork and also removing that thought. You don't have to think about your training or what your split's going to be or your reps or your sets or your rest periods. And then similarly, the same sort of thing with nutrition. Having somebody that simply says, this is what I've created, this is why it's going to work, and this is what I want you to do, and then it ultimately working is a real confidence boost for you as an individual, but then also it makes it easier for you to stick to it because you're not having to try and think about all the variables. So how did we achieve this body transformation then? So obviously, as you can imagine, PTs, they do actually work long hours. So PT can be so varied, everything from early mornings to late nights. My PTs are a little bit different to that. They do tend to have more of a set structure, but it's still going to be demanding. So a predictable training routine can actually go out the window when you're working with personal training clients because you're kind of at the beck and call of when other people can fit into your schedule. So a routine needed to be established to really hit this training system in the way that I designed it. And obviously outside of the gym, Laura had the same challenges as everybody else. So being a parent, being a mum of 2, she had all the usual challenges of juggling the kids, juggling home life, juggling what's happening on weekends, navigating normal life while staying on track was obviously going to be the biggest challenge for Laura to get into photo shoot shape. And remember guys, again, getting into photo shoot shape is not an easy thing. It's something that really you have to work really hard at. And not only that, most PTs, they do have ideas, they have programs, they have theories in their head. They're learning all the time, which means they can often chop and change programs way too frequently or drop the calories way too low, like we've already identified. So in the hope that you're going to get better results, but they end up then cutting the nose off to spite the face. So this is where weekly check-ins and having a solid program that was created for Laura was going to be an absolute must. So we could find consistency and continuity, and so we could get Laura to focus on doing one thing, following that one thing, seeing it through to get the adaptations that we wanted, and then ultimately seeing results. But obviously being low weight and higher body fat than we would have wanted to start a photo shoot prep also meant that Laura's maintenance calories, so TDE calories, they were actually quite low as well. They were only 1650. So being 5 foot, being 50 kilos, when you run the numbers, she doesn't need a lot of calories to maintain that first photo. And for her to actually drop weight and body fat from that first photo, she's going to need to cut from the calories that would be a theoretical maintenance, which in this case was 1650. So you imagine applying a 30% deficit to that. We're going to start dropping those calories really low, really fast. And it's going to be something that she's going to find super hard to stick to. And she's not going to find that she can support physiology for the adaptations that we want from her training. She's not going to be able to push hard. Sleep's going to be affected. She's going to be tired, hungry, and moody, which is the opposite of what we want when we're trying to achieve results. So, obviously, if we started at TDE, we would have to cut from there. So instead of doing that, what I did with Laura is I actually took her into a 10% surplus. So knowing that that TDE level was a little bit too low, but also knowing that we were going to ramp training volume up, as I'm going to share with you with a program, I actually pushed Laura into a 10% calorie surplus, which obviously she wasn't too happy about at the start. She was scared that her weight would jump too high, but I started her calories at 1850. And again, if you're going to be 5'8" and you might be 70, 80, 90 kilos, 1850 might actually be a deficit for you. It might be your maintenance calories. For Laura, this was actually a calorie surplus, where in theory, she was actually going to be gaining weight, not obviously losing weight and body fat. So I started the calories at 1850. We ended the program at 1450 in a step-loaded approach. So week 1, she wasn't actually dieting. So really what you could say is that this is an 11-week body transformation, because we didn't start a deficit until weeks 2 to 5. So week 1, not dieting, 10% surplus. We held here. We started the program, 1850 calories. We establish a new start point for where she's going to be in terms of calories. And we essentially, from that first check-in, we assess progress. Now, she actually lost weight on 1850 because concurrently, whilst pushing those calories up, I also increased the training volume. So we actually put in a structured training program where she'll be training 5 days per week with weights plus cardio. Then weeks 2 to 5, we then actually dropped calories from 1850 to 1635, so a 10% deduction from that calorie surplus. But then I'm starting to walk a tightrope. Remember, we want to get the absolute best result. We're not just going to crash diet. And if we do cut these calories too fast, too soon, this is now going to start to really affect how Laura can train. So the next 2 calorie drops were not really big drops. So 100 or so calories per time, not enough to create massive deficits, just 700 calories across that week. And we're not diving into those big calorie deficits that I might have been able to get away with should Laura's TDE be much higher and should her own biometrics be much higher. So we're starting macros for the program. So on 1850, she was eating 127 grams of proteins, 61 grams of fat, 190 grams of carbs. Again, these numbers are worked out based on Laura's biometrics. I wouldn't possibly be able to obviously do that for yourself in a video. This is what was relevant for Laura, and what changed over time was obviously relevant to those changes that Laura made in terms of progress. So don't take these numbers as gospel for you, because they're not. This is not something that you will have to follow as an individual. You need your own individualized program to be able to obviously look at macros and calories in this way. So I'm sharing this with you though, so you can see the process that we went through. So start at 1850, we reduced that over time, and at 1450, ending macros were 115 grams of protein, 48 grams of fat, and 139 grams of carbohydrates. So same sort of thing. you'll see some of these diet plans that you'll start at whatever weight you might be today, and they're going to try and get you to eat less than 50 grams of carbs per day. It's absolutely not needed. And with a proper approach, we can walk that tightrope and we can bring those calories down, and we can actually hold on or build muscle tissue and then really home in on improving that tone and shape. So Laura's training split then. So Laura's training split, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to share Laura's case study with you, because I operated a completely different program with Laura to some of the other programs that you've seen in other case study videos. So over the course of the week, we actually went for 3 lower days and 2 upper body days. So we had a lower one which focused on squat being the predictor lift. The lower 2 focused on a hip thrust being the predictor lift. The lower 3 focused on a deadlift being the predictor lift, whereas the upper 1 and upper 2 had a balanced approach to agonist, antagonist, push-pull formats, covering all bases from obviously upper body muscle groups. So what we wanted to improve through Laura's training split was obviously improve a lower half, improve volume for glutes and also for abs. And that was built into Laura's programming. And then if we take a look at what that looked like then over the phases. So how this progressed, the process that I took Laura through. So phase 1, we started with a standardized 4 sets 10 to 12. So 4 sets 10 to 12 built around that predictor lift and those A and B series exercises with those accessories, receiving then 3 sets of 12 to 15. Phase 2, we moved then into a skewed pyramid. So a skewed pyramid altered that rep scheme a little bit with that back offset at the end, that little touch on a higher load for the 8 rep part of that scheme. And again, this would have been built around the A series. So again, working through that load increase as the reps come down, and then that load decrease as we go into that back offset of 15 reps. So again, touching on hitting heavier loads and then backing off, staying in a bit more of a sort of strength endurance based stimuli after hitting more hypertrophy based stimuli. And then we finished the program by operating a completely different system altogether. So I wrote a daily undulating periodization program for Laura, which meant that her lower body days would have a light day, a moderate day, and a heavy day. So the squat day was the light day, the hip thrust day was the moderate day, and the deadlift day was the heavy day. So what this allowed us to do was change the stimuli throughout the week. So we're now not just looking at programs where we change it on a 4-weekly basis, as I've done with Laura here. We actually changed this weekly. So we're providing a strength endurance stimuli for the light day, more of a hypertrophy stimuli for the moderate day, and then more of a sort of neural / functional hypertrophy, traditional hypertrophy for the heavy day. So progressively exposing the central nervous system and the body as a whole to varied stimuli that meant that we were obviously chasing adaptations. For Laura's upper body day, we moved into a heavy light split. So the A series and B series, which again would have focused on, it would have been some delt work, it would have been some back work. We were then focusing on a heavy light program. I've covered this in previous case studies. It's a method that I really, really like, and that was implemented on Laura's upper body days. Cardio. So cardio started weeks 1 to 4. We had 15 intervals of 30 seconds on, 90 seconds off. Weeks 5 to 8, we did exactly the same thing. Weeks 9 to 12, we changed the actual cardio system up. We then went for 20 seconds on using something like a heavy sled or an air bike or ropes. 20 seconds as hard as she could go for with 60 seconds recovery, 10 times with 30 minutes steady state after her intervals. So a program example then. So this is a program example of the skew pyramid that I wrote for Laura for upper body 1 day. So as you can see, as I alluded to earlier, so the skew pyramid is built around the A series. So for the semi-supinated shoulder press and for the prime pull down, the weight's getting progressively heavier before we then hit that back offset. So what Laura lifted for 12 to then 10 would have been heavier at 10. 10 to then 8 would have been heavier at 8. So we're popping more weight either in the form of a dumbbell or obviously on a pull down, a pin. So going up to that next level. And then we've got a lighter load for that back off set. So that lighter load for that 15 rep part of that scheme. We then worked through accessories. We had seated rows, standing dumbbell lateral raisers, upper back pull aparts, tricep rope push downs, incline dumbbell bicep curls in a nice balanced format for this program. Phase 3 for a stage set. So I'm going to give you an example of what her deadlift day looked like. So we built everything around the trap bar deadlift. So the trap bar deadlift, we did 5 sets of 8, 8, 6, 6, 4. Now a stage set is where you have a descending rep scheme and it's going to run in a series. So we're going to implement, in this case, 3 parts of that stage set. You can equally add 6 sets and add another 4th rep in that stage set example that you can see for a array series. So that could have been 6 sets of 8, 8, 6, 6, 4, 4 if you wanted to have a double stage for that 4 part of that scheme. We then supersetted a 1 1/4 lion leg curl with front foot elevated split squat. We then supersetted a pendulum squat with a cable glute kickback. Again, these are some of the exercises that obviously I've got in my gym, some of the machines that I've got in my gym. You might not have access to a trap bar deadlift or might not have access to a pendulum squat. That's fine. It just is what it is. You can switch those out to do something like a Romanian deadlift, or you could do also a leg press for pendulum squat. Not exactly the same thing, but it gives you an idea. And then the final exercise was a gar hammer raise for abs, 3 sets, as many reps as she could get. So achieving this Photoshoot level result then. So again, we had a flexible approach to implementing calories and Laura's macro structure. So that 80-20 rule, even though you're trying to get into physique shape, still exists. So it's not like you've got to completely cut everything out. Again, the same sort of thing. You've got a little bit of what you fancy, a little bit to play with, but more precision's needed. So to make sure that you're hitting those calories, just weighing the worst offenders, like your carbs, so things like your rice, your pasta, your potatoes. Most people just starting off a program won't necessarily need to do that. But when you're trying to get to a point where you're taking body fat really quite, not necessarily super low in this case, but lower than where it's been and getting more into that sort of realm of physique-based training, then obviously, yeah, we want to make sure that we bang on the money because we've only got a certain amount of time to get this result in. We want to avoid foods and drinks that cause gastric irritation and bloating. So again, your worst offenders, things like legumes, sometimes fish, shellfish, nuts and seeds. These sorts of things are common foods that people do bloat to. Things like wheat, gluten can also be an issue. So just knowing what that is for you and then ruling that out so that you're actually feeling good. And then also getting Laura back on track after any slip up. Like at the end of the day, sometimes you'll look at the results that I share. You might think that the clients are just robots. They're not. So Laura slipped up. People slip up on programs. It's not what happens because she slipped up. It's what happens in terms of what you do next. It's just getting back on track ASAP. So you don't attach any guilt, any negativity or anything like that. And you actually still stick to the program by and large, which means you still get the best result that you possibly could in that time. And then obviously use of refeeds and a structured reverse diet after the photo shoot to prevent any rebound. So again, as I've shared with you in other case studies, guys, you're getting an insight into what high-level coaching looks like, just exactly how these clients are achieving these epic results. I honestly believe that anybody can get into amazing shape. You're just not working with the right people. You don't have the right programs in place. You're following all the same sort of fatty diets and just basic things when you go to a gym. You need more specificity and structure no matter where you're actually starting from. It doesn't matter whether it's a massive weight loss goal or whether you've been to a gym for years and you want to get into photo shoot shape or physique shape. You need proper coaching, you need proper programs. And obviously I've taken everyone from complete beginners, seasoned gym goers, personal trainers, physique athletes, all through their own results driven programmers. And hopefully what you're taking away from it is that, again, you need that structure and everything has to be created around you as an individual. So your calories are going to be very different. Your own biomechanics are going to be very different. Your own structure is going to be very different. So the exercises that we pick, the calories that we pick, the macros that we pick are going to be really important to you. But it won't have much bearing or relevancy to anyone else. And obviously, I know I've got the experience to be able to take anybody through a transformation at every stage of that journey. So taking you from high body fat to low body fat and whatever it might be. So you, without a doubt, can achieve the best results. And obviously, you can now do the same. So jump back into your emails. You're going to be able to start your journey by transforming yourself through any of my different programs or by working with me direct. And again, I hope you've really enjoyed this case today. Hope you're understanding and starting to see what's possible and really get stuck into your own transformation journey.